Hey everybody, Fang here with this week's Design Cinema. We're back after about a 2 week break from Chinese New Year here in Asia. Let me just jump into this painting and then we'll go back and talk about other stuff. So here is a photograph that I took when I was in LA out of my studio in Los Angeles, which looks right at the Hollywood sign. So I thought that'd be kind of interesting as a quick demo to show some basic painting techniques of working off of photographs. So this a reminder, if you're gonna do something like this, make sure the photo is yours. Do not use stuff on the internet because you could get into problems because photographs, like everything else, is copyrighted. So this photo is taken by myself, so therefore the creation of it is completely your own. And what I've done here is basically find the horizon line and extract the vanishing points, because if we are going to draw something on top, we have to make sure that our objects fall in the same perspective as the photograph. Otherwise, you'll just look out of place. So I'm just making a set of grids here to help my eye measure those points out. Which, by the way, next month we'll have another video. It's already been made. It was made about almost 2 months ago. That has a more detailed version of a very similar demo to this one, but it's just way more elaborate, and we'll be releasing that somewhere in March. The reason why it's not out yet is because it's part of a special DVD that's on this month is Advanced Photoshop magazine. So if you have that magazine, there's a DVD that comes with it, and you'll see it actually already released in that format. So okay, let's get back to this one. So yeah, just the background plate there. You can see the photograph, the Hollywood signs in there. So our studio looks kind of right out at the at Hollywood. Right below that, you see Tower Records, and you see I think Fox Studios. They're all in the shot. It's quite interesting little layout there. All the studios in LA are basically laid right in front of you right there. And here I'm drawing some just initial drawings. This demo was very quick. This in real time. This took no less than, I think, less than 2 hours to do. It's just something that I was showing some students, just very quick technique. So it's not exactly polished painting, but hopefully it will help some of you guys see how at least the initial stages how this gets put together. This is some cloud that I got. Again, every photo that you see are taken by myself. So these clouds as well. So I generally try to avoid, unless you're using something like texture work, or for example, you're texturing a weapon or something like that. It doesn't really matter because by the time that texture ends up in your image, you have no idea where it came from. Whereas even clouds, believe it or not, you can recognize cloud patterns. So get your own stuff. So all these clouds you see here are all taken by myself as well. And right now I'm preparing the plate, meaning that before we design anything on top of it, let's prepare the photograph or the actual shot design, the set itself, to have the right colors, the right mood, right, before we put the actual design. So I'm just playing around with different clouds here, right, trying out different ones to try to capture that right mood. So the theme of this painting is going to be a little bit like an alien invasion type of thing, where they build a bunch of control towers or something like that on the in Hollywood here. So it didn't come out exactly as finished as I want because of the time crunch, but I think it does get the point across. So here's another cloud. Just trying out different settings here. I save all the layers in this case. When I'm teaching class, I tend to keep all the layers on, so that way the students could reverse engineer the whole process. So just copying all the layers, I'm adjusting the layers. So yeah, let's go back to the beginning. Where I was going to say that we were off for about 2 weeks due to Chinese New Year. It's kind of like the Christmas of the States, where in the States we take like 2 weeks off all the way from Christmas to New Year's. The same kind of thing here, except it kind of happens right in February, which is a weird date to be shut down. But anyways, we are back, and I'll also be doing a couple more fundamental type of tutorials, not in the sense of perspective and those kind of things, but more aligned, that's similar to the basics of Wacom tablets, because I think that's quite popular with a lot of people. I think it helps a lot of you out there who are just getting to digital painting. So I'll go over some stuff like how to set up your brush, how to make new brushes, and your canvas in Photoshop and those sort of things. So I'll probably be making that sometime next week. So let's get back to this one. So the plate has been prepared, and now I'm going to start drawing some designs. So I started this painting just like all the other ones I do, not much planning. I do that on purpose when I do demos for my class, because I want the students to feel like these things are done as if we're in a studio environment, that the pressure is always there, because sometimes you show up in a studio or even a client, you have no idea what they want, but then you have to produce it in a very short amount of time. So you can literally have a meeting at 9 o'clock and they want something by 2 p.m. or something like that, right? And that happens quite often. So you have to be prepared to be able to design and draw whatever the theme it is, right? You can't be like, oh, I only want to do this or I only want to do that. You can't do that especially in a freelance world like ours. So by not preparing too far ahead when I teach my classes, I actually don't know what I'm gonna paint. So I just prepare the canvas and see. You can see this thing evolve a few times as I draw and change designs. So it's a good way to also just learn instead of drawing the same thing over and over again. Like drawing a big mech or something just over and over again. It gets kind of boring. Just change the theme up a little bit, right? Force yourself to be challenged. So here I'm laying in some just basic design elements, turning the grid on that I prepared earlier, so that way this thing falls in the same perspective, right? The horizon line is sort of right below the Hollywood sign there, right? Because you can see the mountains kind of running in the distance there. So that's the horizon line. So at this point, we're looking up at this, whatever this thing is, some kind of weird alien structure, maybe it's a spaceship. And then below the Hollywood sign, we'll see down into the ship, and that's just basics of perspective. And here I'm adjusting just some of the values, getting the major forms out. Digital painting at this stage is all about, at this stage at least, knocking out the basic forms, the big shapes, right? Don't worry about the details yet. Right? Getting things to be adjusted. And one way to look at these, hopefully you guys are viewing these in full screen. All right? So that way you could blur your eye, kind of step back from the monitor a little bit and just blur your eye slightly. And if you blur your eye and kind of look at the top of this spaceship, you see that it's starting to melt in, it's relatively okay with the photograph. So it's a good way to check to see if your painting is standing out, or is it too much of a digital painting compared to the photo behind it. Now, something that I have to talk about here is which is called texture density, which you can look back way back at a demo, I think, called Sniper Nest or something like that. That one actually talks about density, which is also deals with working on top of photographs. The problem with photos is that photos are very dense in terms of detailing. So when you paint something that's not as dense on top, it's very evident that it's a digital painting on top of a photograph. So there's a little bit of extra work you have to put into these kind of paintings where you have to match density level. So the detail has to match. Right? And you'll see me do that a little bit as we progress on this painting. So let's see what else on the school side. So yeah, we'll continue with these design cinemas. I think for the next 2-3 weeks, we'll do a couple more basic stuff, and then we'll get back into more specific things. I want to do a couple more character things. I think those tend to be quite popular with, especially I think the younger kids. They prefer to draw characters than anything else. So we'll do a few more based on that. But just as the industry as a whole, though, they're actually, I think, character design, at least in my world, I come from industrial design, so most of my friends also who tend to work in the film industry, the character stuff is actually a very small part of it, because if you think about a film or a video game, the number one thing you see all the time are levels or sets, right? So, and there's a lot of things. So if you play a game like what's out right now, like Lost Planet or something like that, you go from one world to another, and somebody's designed those, right? The characters, they remain the same going from one planet to another. So the actual work is actually, that's why I do a lot of environments, because that's probably majority of my work. So the current project I'm on right now, I'm working on a film right now. It's all environments, right? All sets. They want to get the mood down before the characters are casted anyways. They're actors. So the only thing you got to do is do some costumes for them, which I'm doing as well. But definitely, I'll say about 30% of it is based on that. The rest are all environments. So same with the video games I'm working on. The first thing they want is the environments. They want to see what does the world look like? What does the world feel like? And then 30% of that is then, okay, what does the bad guys look like? What does a player character look like? So that kind of thing. So anyways, let's get back to this painting. So we are now drawing some of the close-up objects. I'm using a technique here, which is scaling, to help sell the scale. Basically, by putting something very close to camera and then repeating the same shape into the distance, you trick the human eye to think that there's some kind of perspective going on, right? There's some kind of 3D-ness to this. So that's what I'm doing with these kind of little tower stations or whatever they are. Use a little bit of volumetric fog to balance out the values. You can see I got quite a bit of layers going on. Pretty soon I'm going to crush all those layers down so the file becomes faster. This demo is done on a machine in our classrooms. This is not my laptop or my home machine. And this machine, when you push it too far in terms of the size of the image, it actually slows down a little bit. So I don't want to make this image super complex in terms of too many layers. You'll slow the computer down. So pretty soon you'll see me crush all the layers down to just one, right? But whenever I do that, always save another version. I save it at version v2, v3, v4. That way, if you do want to go back and get rid of something in a layer, you don't have to paint it out. You can just go turn it off. So it's just a general practice. And also, it gives you a couple of formats, a couple of versions of the same painting. So one, you can see the progression of it. Two, if something happens to this first version, like this one, maybe somehow it gets corrupted, you still have another version of it that's not too far back. So in general, when I do a painting, I end up to about F or G if I start with A, right? Do 1A, 1B, 1C, 1, something like that. So for a pretty big painting, it ends up with somewhere in the EFG range. So that's about 6, 7 versions. So here I'm starting to continue to paint details. At this point, I'm still not even really clear what I'm painting. This is just showing students, here's how I add this, here's how that. And sometimes they come off quite random because we're trying to show different techniques within the same painting. So, but trying to merge the stuff together. Here's some towers and roads for the alien people to walk on, right? And it's important that I keep the Hollywood sign in there because if this is a production painting, or some kind of storyboard or some kind of story point, it's important to have the sign in there to tell the audience or even the directors what we are, right? Because I'm blocking out a lot of the street itself, so you can't really tell what city you're in. Okay, so continue detailing. Technical wise, this is actually a very low res painting. This is only 2800 pixels wide, you saw earlier, because the computer I'm painting on is the default resolution is 1440 by 900. So I basically just doubled that to be 2800. So again, depending on your resolution, I like to work at 50 to 100% view. So if I want 50%, then if I make it 2800, then 50% is 1440, which is exactly the same res as the screen, giving me a nice view of the canvas. So if you're working in much higher res, you just double that or triple that or 4 times that, and then you get the same view, but the image is much higher res. Here I'm knocking in a quick figure just to see scale, right? I'm not even going to keep this guy around. It's just to paint him in to see would it look okay if I leave a scale character in here. Right? And I turn this layer off after a while, right? To show students that plan the painting in advance, so you know what you're going to do there, but you don't need to work on it now because he blocks too much of the background. Okay, and then just continue adding details. This painting is kind of going to the red theme here, a lot of red. Later on, I'll tone it back down. Let's see any other technical stuff. No, pretty much this is not on a very beast of a machine, so it should be pretty easy for you guys to emulate this as well. You don't need a crazy computer to do something like this. If you're practicing with photographs, try to start with low res. Don't worry about super high res photos. Even something that's 1000 pixels wide is fine, because what you want to do is capture the values. Don't worry about the details too much. Another good practice is to just draw a couple of objects that are from the photograph itself next to each other. For example, you have a photo of a couple people standing next to each other, and then you paint a few more people, but they're fake, right? They're digital next to the real photograph, and you don't have to worry about details, but capture the overall value. And the way to check to see if they work is zoom the photo out. Zoom in so it's a tiny little icon, and see if the photos, if the characters you painted or the people look just like photographs from the ones next to it, right? So perhaps I'll do a demo on this for next week, so you guys can see what I'm talking about, right? It's a very good way to learn about digital painting. So here I'm using some texture. So this kind of stuff here, right? These photos are not mine. These are from just random internet photos. But to see the way you use it is completely gone. The subject matter is not the major part of your image anymore. So at this point, yeah, it doesn't really matter. I think you get these sources from all over. This becomes your research material. This becomes textures, right? Versus the matte painting or the image from behind this image, that is pretty prominent in your painting, in your final result. So you gotta make sure that that stuff belongs to you, just in case, right? Play it safe. So here just some random textures showing students again how to use textures in the situations like this. And using photo textures saves you some time because you are trying to create that density, which I talked about earlier, to match the detail level of the photograph. This density must hold up. So by using other photographs, you kind of just speeds that process up versus painting this for the next 5 hours, trying to match every single brush mark to have the same density. So. And this painting I consider about 40% finished, even by the time we're done with this, right? That means if we spend another maybe 3-4 hours on it, we can actually turn it into a very precise painting, very clean. But the initial stages is all set at this point.